Today on Caffeine and Concepts, we are caffeinating your creativity with Scott Marean. Scott is a technology advisor and fractional CTO specializing in the fintech SaaS space. He previously served as a CTO at FIS and capital markets for over 11 years, where he led technology initiatives across various business units, including asset management, private equity, commercial lending, insurance, and data services. As a tech advisor, Scott focuses on helping companies scale their technology, leadership, and processes to create momentum and drive growth. He's also an avid AI learner and writer, frequently publishing AI-related articles on LinkedIn and speaking of technology panels. All right, today's topic, AI as your new co-pilot, a CTO's practical playbook for innovation. In this episode today, we are going to be serving up no fluff, hands-on playbook for weaving AI into the real everyday work of tech leadership, from decision-making to development to data strategy. If you're a CTO or a tech leader still waiting for a perfect AI roadmap to appear, don't. It's time to start building smarter and faster. We'll dive into tangible tactics like modernizing your SaaS stack, upskilling teams, and turning internal data into a competitive edge. Because in this new AI-powered era, playing it safe isn't safe at all. Innovation isn't optional, it is survival. Welcome, Scott.
All right. Thank you, Shilpi. Great to be here. That was a great intro. I can't wait to hear it.
Nice, nice. All right, so we're going to start off with something that, warms up the conversation. It's going to be mostly rapid fire. So I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to respond based on what pops into your head first. All
All right.
right?
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. The last AI tool you experimented with.
The last one. Well, just yesterday, I tried the new version of Gemini because I've heard great things about it and that it has a larger context window. And indeed, it does. I'm a huge fan of Claude, and that's typically the one that as my go-to. And then I tried to upload 5 documents and ask questions, and Claude was just like, yeah, I can't do that. Gemini, I was like, gladly, I'll take it. It did wonderfully. So I think it's so fun to see how the tools keep leapfrogging each other and just kind of, listen to the news, what's going on, and experiment with whichever one has the headlines lately.
I agree. I think innovation is happening at such a fast rate. I think it's hard to keep up. And absolutely not, there is no way necessarily that one can keep up. So I think if you can, I don't know, if you can narrow down your tech stack that you're experimenting with and
Yeah.
based on, the role that you're playing, I think that's an excellent approach to have. Cool. All
Well,
right.
and I guess one other one, just worthy of mention, even though it's not quick fire anymore, now we're doing slow fire. But uh, the OpenAI image generator now is amazing. Like I used to come up with images for presentations or LinkedIn articles, and I'd see one that was really close, and I'm like, yeah, could you just do that? Except could you change this aspect of it? And it used to be it would just completely give you a new image. The old stuff that you liked is gone. The new stuff that you asked for is kind of there. And I would go through like 3 iterations and just give up and go back to my first one. And like, that's good enough. And then lately, the new OpenAI image generation is just spot on. Like it'll take exactly what you said, like keep this, add this. It can even do text now that's accurate. You can change like the style of fonts and just by just with words, right? And that's just a game changer, a major step change. Like it's just totally different now. Anyway,
I
sorry.
agree with you. I use it as well, and I love the I guess the flexibility that it allows. However, having said this, the the only complaint I have within that is if I put a picture of mine and say, okay, add this to whatever image that I want generated, whether it is on digital transformation, on data, on whatever that may be, right? The back end is perfect, but when they take my image and supersede it, I just look wonky. I
Oh,
do not look like a human being. I just look
oh,
weirdly alien. So
yeah.
it's I think there's still a tad bit of tweaking that needs
All
to be
right.
done.
Fair
Yeah.
enough. Yeah.
All right. Your biggest non-work obsession right now.
It's a non-work obsession. Oh, I don't know. Lately, I've just been focused on working out and trying to get like totally healthy. So, actually lost I'm at lost 12 pounds recently on the way to 15. So I'm trying to get like ideal weight. So I know
Oh, I
it's probably
love
a silly thing
that.
to bring up on a tech podcast, but it takes some serious work and a lot of just, denying yourself to get there.
But Scott, I think yeah, I think this is a very important topic, right? Wellness, whether mental, physical, emotional wellness is key to being best at your work. So I think that what you're driving at in your personal um, wellness journey, physical wellness journey, I think is essential and hopefully will become, part of your professional aspects as well. So
Yeah. No, actually, that's a really good point. Is I think as AI, to try to bring it back into AI here, but as AI does more and more for us, like what are the things that AI can't do for us? Like it can't go to the gym, it can't eat healthy, right? Like it can help us do that, but it certainly can't do it for us. So yeah, to thrive as a human, we'll still need to do those things on our own. So there you go.
true, true, true. I hope you have taken out a workout regime or your meal prep
Yeah.
using AI.
Well, I downloaded some good trainer workouts, and I actually asked AI what they thought about the workout that I downloaded, and Claude was like, "Wow, this is a great workout. It must have been developed by a pro because," and it went into all these critiques about the workout about why it's so good. I'm like, "All right, there you go. That's the one I'm going to follow then." So
Nice. I like
yeah,
that. I like that. All right. What's your most recent aha moment with AI?
uh, I think a really fun one that I did recently, and I wrote a LinkedIn article about this actually, was to use LinkedIn, I downloaded my LinkedIn contacts and then uploaded them into a bunch of different AI tools. And then I asked it like, hey, if I'm looking for a new role, fintech SaaS CTO, like who would be good people to contact on my contacts just to see what it would say? Because I've got so many contacts, I could probably find the recruiters in there, but why not let AI try to figure it out for me? And and so I tried all the tools, and again, Claude being my favorite one at the moment, uh, just blew me away with not only did it identify the executive recruiters, of course, it also found HR people in fintech SaaS companies by very, uh, just by knowing the name of the company and their title, looking for HR and talent acquisition. It also came up with other CTOs that I know that are at similar companies that I might be interested in because maybe they have leads. And then it put it all in a table, which I wasn't expecting, and it ranked them all like on a scale of 1 to 10. It gave me a little explanation of each one of like why that one was a good one to contact. And then it gave me this whole strategy of how to contact everyone. Like you should contact these kind of people in this way, and this would be a good message to send them. I was just like, it went so far above and beyond what I asked it. I like AI is getting to the point now where it like infers what you mean, and it's like I can tell what you're trying to do, so let me not just answer the question you asked, but let me go a step further. Like if you were asking like a pro advisor, this is what they would do, right? And but it automatically switches into that mode and does that now, which is just phenomenal. Like it's just crazy. So
That's
yeah.
an amazing, amazing guidance and tip, Scott. I know there's tons of people who would definitely benefit from this approach. I think having your own AI assistant, whether it is for job search, whether it's marketing yourself, building your brand, whatever that may be. And I love how practically you have put in the steps. So for all you folks out there looking for either a change or looking for a new gig, or just want to figure out who are the folks that are within your contact list that would be great to reconnect with. This is an approach that I would definitely recommend.
Yeah. I'm sure you could use it for sales too, right? So
Yeah.
if you're, a salesperson, you're trying to figure out who in my network should I contact to sell my services or products, I'm sure I could do a similar analysis and come up with a credible response. So yeah, certainly don't waste that. And I think it's odd that LinkedIn doesn't do it automatically. LinkedIn being owned by Microsoft, I would just expect that that would be a premium feature that you could pay for and just ask it all sorts of interesting questions, but not yet.
Not yet. And I have a feeling that it is probably coming down the pipeline,
I
and
would
it
think
will
so.
probably
Yeah.
come with a membership, so to speak, or a
Right.
subscription. Absolutely. Nice. Perfect. All right. This one is a good question for me too. So, what's one tech buzzword you secretly wish would disappear?
Buzzword that I wish would disappear. Oh gosh, I don't know. I, give me some ideas. What do you think? I'm,
Um,
yeah, I don't know. I think it's, I can't think of one that's annoying right now. I think a few years ago, I felt like blockchain was kind of annoying. It was just like, I understand what it is, and everyone's trying to find like, I've got this tool, like what problem could we possibly solve with it, you know? Whereas AI, for example, I feel like is totally the opposite. Like, yeah, it's got a lot of buzz like blockchain had, but everybody's using it. Like
mm,
ChatGPT is breaking records on, app usage in the shortest amount of time kind of thing. So it's for real. It's changing the world. So I'm not tired of it yet. I don't know. How about you? What are some
it's
buzzwords that
a
you're thinking
couple of
of?
words I think, and this is broader than that. I think the word innovation, everything is innovation. But automation is not necessarily innovation. So I feel innovation is another one word, and then the other word that I think annoys me also is um, it is disruption.
Mm,
Everything is a disruption, right? And I feel like it's so overused that it's almost diluted in what is considered to be innovative, what's considered to be, it's like automation. Automation is I think a great way to synthesize and make things efficient, but it's not necessarily innovative. I think innovative would be something that's potentially leveraging, I don't know, robotics to uh, make somebody who has lost a leg be able to walk again, right?
sure,
Or
sure.
innovative with you've seen those ads, I'm sure, where you can put these nodes into your brain and it helps your fingers move if you don't, have a hand, or
Yeah.
if you've had paralysis. I think that would be innovation.
All right, that counts.
Um, yes, yeah, exactly. So I think that word, because writing an email that is revamped or cleansed by AI, it's great. It's not necessarily innovative in
Right,
my
right.
books.
All right, so that just reminded me of, all right, here's my biggest technology annoyance is YouTube videos with an AI narration. So so I love watching YouTube videos. I love watching interviews. Or even I'm totally happy to listen to someone analyze a topic. I just don't want the voice to be AI. And as you're like, maybe 20 seconds into it, you can't tell yet. But then once you're about 5 minutes into it, you're like, this is totally AI. Like, and I don't know why it annoys me so much. I mean, it's still probably useful information. I just feel like I don't want to hear it this way. Like, I want to hear real people. So I'm glad that we're doing this for real live, no AI involved.
I
More,
agree.
more engaging, I think.
More engaging, and I think it also humanizes the conversation, right? It humanizes the fact that we have the ums and the ums, or we don't know certain things, or we are thinking through the process, and that's so much more relatable. Um, and speaking of your, yeah, Gemini, from your previous point, and speaking of podcast or um, having a AI generated voiceover, they do an amazing job. But you're right. I mean, after a while, it just gets like, who speaks like this?
Right.
Nobody in real life I know who speaks like this, unless they've had like 100 takes in the back end before you can refine it to that level, which is rare.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd
Yeah.
rather just keep it personal.
Yes. Agreed. Okay, perfect. All right. This is if you had to pick building versus buying, what gets you more excited?
Okay. Well, I mean, immediately jumped to building. I love building. Uh, so, build. It's like I was a computer science major, loved to program, loved to build. However, I would say, in corporate context, like you can't build everything, right? So, the last, I don't know, 20 years ish, I've worked for software vendors. And so,
Mhm.
software vendors exist. Like, I like if you're working for the vendor you're building, but obviously all of our customers are buying, right? And I think that uh, you know, I think everyone's always talked about if you're if your company is looking to build software, if that software doesn't give you competitive edge and isn't like the thing that brings you value, then you should just buy it instead. Like, why waste your precious time developing something that you can just buy off the shelf? So I think you have to use that filter to figure out you should buy versus build. But uh, and I think now you can even buy kind of best of breed tools that let you build inside them, right? I think that's a pretty cool combination. So uh, I don't know, just like Salesforce, for instance, they've got this agent builder inside of it. So you buy Salesforce, but then you can like essentially build inside, right? So it's an interesting kind of both, right? And I think that combination is really powerful.
I like that. Yes, I do agree with you. I'm also veering towards building because it's very creative. You have to come up with the entire understanding the market, understanding the client, so on and so forth, right? And of course, hands-on building. But to your point, there is no reason to build, if it's not something new, not something that is going to either generate true innovation, creativity, or something that is not easy to get and you can build. Otherwise, yeah, buy much easier. Or if it's too expensive too, I think that's also another consideration, right? There are times when you may need a portion of that particular technology, not necessarily the entire
Mhm.
technology, and the entire technology may be a very expensive investment for a company. So I think maybe that would be another consideration
Right.
to be taken
Yeah,
into account. Yeah.
sure.
Okay, perfect. All right, last question. Your bold prediction. How different will the CTO role look like in 5 years?
Oh, five. Oh my gosh.
Five
I
years,
think, I
yes.
think, I think, I think five's almost impossible to even see at this point because I think one is pretty crazy. So I think is his name Dario, who's the CEO of Anthropic. I think he was saying that his prediction is that by the end of this year, 90% of all code will be written by AI, and next year, all code will be written by AI. And I think what's even more staggering than that is that I think it was him again in a different interview said something like 2025 is the last year that humans will be better than AI at coding. Like, let that sink in for a little bit. Like, starting next year, AI is better than all of us at coding. Like, that's crazy. Like I thought when I graduated with a computer science degree, like this is the best degree ever. Software development is like the best career. Like I think Mark Andreessen said like software is eating the world. Was that him or was it somebody else? But uh but yeah, so now it's going to be software writing software is eating the world. It's still software, but we're not going to be writing it anymore. And so what does that mean for your dev teams? Like your dev teams are going to be a completely different like just calling it like a different way of working doesn't even quite capture it because like AI is going to be like a co-worker, not a tool, right? Like it's just going to be doing stuff, right? Like you ask it, let's write something that does this and something that does that, and you might even have more than one going at once, and then start up someone else like, hey, can you test that? You're going to think about them like people, right? Like you're probably not even going to call them agents anymore. You're going to give them names and just be like, hey, Bob, can you do that? And it's going to be wild. I think people will be talking to their computers more than typing, and that's next year, right? So then, so then,
Yes,
like,
that's
okay,
next year. And
right,
surprisingly, I am sure you do this as well, right? Like in ChatGPT, I use ChatGPT, and while I'm driving, I use the voice command. Hey,
sure,
ChatGPT, could you give me an analysis of XYZ book that I'm listening
yeah,
to, or a news article, or a particular topic that I'm interested in from a macroeconomics perspective? So yes, I think there's the whole voice command of telling AI to do certain things and conversing back and forth on it is already started. So I
yeah.
can't, yeah, next year is going to be an interesting year.
So then, what does
So,
it mean? Like 4 years after that, I like again, I just can't even wrap my mind around it, honestly. Like, just it's
okay, so
how like where does it
I
go
haven't,
from there?
so I haven't put this question into my framework, right? But I will ask you, so are there movies that you see that are like, you know, tech heavy fantasy AI type of movies, right? That are out there that you feel like, okay, this is the direction we are heading towards. This is what the potential of the um, technology that could be downstream.
I don't think that like the movie that hasn't been made that will probably need to be made soon, if it hasn't already, is going to be one where there's just humanoid robots walking around everywhere, right? Like it's I mean if like it's kind of funny. Like I think I've talked about this before uh, on different panels. It has come up where we're talking about robots, and I'm like, what you should do right now is you should run out to like cities where there's like a downtown area or anywhere, like even a store, and take videos and pictures for your grandkids so you can show them this is what it looked like before there were robots everywhere. Because like 5 years from now, there will be like robots in those areas, just like it's just a normal thing, right?
Yes,
And you'll
yes.
walk and talk, like you'll go, there'll be robots, like I think self-driving cars is cool. There's going to be robots that are driving cars that aren't self-driving, right? Like
Yes,
like your
yes.
robot can just get in your old, you know, 1990s Toyota Corolla and just drive it because why not, right? Like it can do the things that a person can do. So like what that will change and how that will look different. I don't think any movie has actually really captured that, right? Of just like, robots
Yeah.
everywhere doing everything, right?
Yeah,
Like
so there
it's,
is a movie that just came out. It's not everywhere, but it's about basically similar theme to what you're saying. It's a human being with a robot embedded in their brain, and eventually the robot takes over their entire sentient thinking,
oh,
just everything about them, and works differently, works smarter, works better, works more efficiently. Um, Not necessarily cruel, because that's the typical movie, that you see about AI, but very efficient, but not tolerant of am I allowed to say BS?
yeah.
Maybe
No,
not
I think,
tolerant of BS.
but I think the other thing is like, if you've ever tried Grok in funny mode, it's pretty funny. Like it'll crack
Mm.
jokes about the entire topic you're talking about. As you like, it can be a serious topic and it'll just crack jokes the whole time. I can totally see like people will be like, I want to talk to robots because robots are hilarious. Like it's not going to be like it'll be like, oh, robot talk like Mickey Mouse, and it's like, you could have it do anything goofy that you want it to do. And I think it'll be really like, it'll be more fun. Like, it'll
Yeah.
be like, it'll be hard to get people to want to hang out with people because the robots are going to be, such a hoot to hang out with. It's gonna be like, we're the best.
Stand-up comedy
So.
is going to be changing.
Yeah, exactly. So
Nice,
we got to watch out
nice.
for that. But yeah, I think that's the movie that hasn't been made that needs to be made. But
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, I like that.
Oh,
I
and then
love
the
that.
another one is I think AR glasses. Even though everyone's annoyed by the thing that could be like kind of an invasion of privacy, I think if you combine robots with AR glasses, and if you're like in a downtown area, like the whole world is superimposed with like a grid on it or whatever, like in a very helpful way of like, you know, you can go over here and get that, taco that was just like the taco you had last week that you really liked. And like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's around the corner. Didn't see it. I think that the way that you'll interact with the world with AR and robots everywhere, it's just like, again, so different than what we're living right now that I think people don't even imagine it because it's just
You're
like
right.
so different. Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. I think the exponential growth that is happening with this technology and the various industries that it can be embedded in and various use cases across that for everyday use. It's not just corporations or big enterprises that's going to be doing this. It's going to be pretty much across the board. So, yeah, exciting times. I'm curious, slightly nervous, but excited as well to see
yeah,
what that brings. What that brings.
absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. So now switching to the more
The real
deeper
questions.
conversations. Exactly. I'll still start off with the whole personal use, right? I love the fact that you said you do use Claude, Gemini. I know you use ChatGPT as well, right? And I love the example that you gave regarding your contacts within LinkedIn. Um, Give me one hack. Do you use AI on a daily basis? And if you
Okay.
do, like, is there one use case or one thing that you use almost, 60% of the time on a weekly basis?
I mean, now I just use like chat for everything. I think it was on the All In podcast recently. I listen, if you haven't noticed, I listen to a lot of podcasts. So, so I think it was Chamath Palihapitiya was saying he uses like chat now for everything that he used to use Google for, right? So, like if you're going to try to find something out or ask a question, like why bother like typing it in, looking through the blue links, figuring out which one to click, reading about it. Like just if you have something that you want to know, you just ask ChatGPT, right? And or whatever your favorite flavor is. So the only time I ever use Google to search anymore is when I want to find a website that I know I want to go take a look at. Like, hey, I'm researching this company. I want to go actually find the company's website and look at it. But normally before that, I actually just go into whichever one is my like favorite of the day and say, tell me about this company. And so it'll go out and look at the whole website and tell me about it. And but then you can do things like tell me about the ownership structure of that company because a lot of PE-backed companies don't advertise that on their site, but
Mhm.
it's but you know if you actually tried to look for it and analyze it, you can figure it out. Well, the chat engines just figure it out instantly, right? Like, oh, that mid-sized company you're looking at is actually owned by this PE company, and they were bought and so, and they've been holding them for 3 years. So they'll probably sell it in the next 2 to 5 years, something like that. Like, it'll like, and it would take you forever to figure that out. So, anyways, I look at it for everything, and even something trivial like uh, there was a possibility I might go to the Braves game tonight in Atlanta here, and uh, and I don't follow baseball at all. I don't tell anyone, but I was like, like rather than trying to figure out like how are the Braves doing, they're playing the Dodgers like that. I think I've heard that the Dodgers are good, so it's like so I just said I said like I think it was Claude again, like, hey, how are the Braves doing this year, and what are their chances against the Dodgers, and kind of like what's the I don't know what's the hot take on the game, right? And it's just so much faster than trying to figure it all out and like which baseball podcast might cover it. And, it's like just like for stuff like that, like you can't beat it. It's just amazing.
Yes,
And
yes.
and
And
I
you're
do
right.
stuff like that. And here's one I haven't mentioned yet. So on X, on Grok, uh, like uh, I use Gemini for anything that you might want to find out that could be related to a YouTube video because, Google owns YouTube. So everything that you want to find out that might be in videos, I ask Gemini for because it can get all that information. And then if there's anything that's super current, like Braves versus Dodgers tonight, I absolutely go to X and ask Grok because Grok is like connected to what happened this minute, right? And what's going on in the world right now. So if you start thinking about like that kind, and then I feel like Claude does an amazing job at, the kind of things I was talking about, like analyzing a problem, putting the results into a table, giving you really good reasoning in a very precise, like kind of just like, oh, that's just awesome results kind of format. But it has to be stuff that isn't like super current. It needs to be a little bit older. And then, so I think as I've kind of looked at all the different tools, I'm starting to run it. Like when you say, what are the situations I go to AI for? Like I filter the situation first and then pick the right tool.
That's an excellent approach, Scott. I think that's very useful tip to have when you're doing a search and you're going to, because I use ChatGPT quite a bit, and because that's my first go-to. But you're right. When I go to Claude, for example, or I go to Gemini, I'll get very different answers, but those answers are ones that trigger a different point of view for me,
Yeah.
which gives it a much more thorough analysis of whatever thing that I may be getting into. Um, I recently did an analysis or a research, I should say, which I used to do in Google before, for a trip that we were planning for in this year, sometime this year, to Alaska. And the details, without me really asking too much about it,
Sure.
right? All I gave was like, I want to go for these number of days, and I'm going with my family, and that was it, right? But it gave me details about if you were doing a winter trip, here are the, these are the things that you could go to based on the fact that you have. I know based on my previous experience, previous context with them, they know that I have four members in my family. So make sure you stay in a two-bedroom, blah, 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 blah.
Sure.
These are the types of food it does. Like it gave me a holistic. viewpoint on things that I had not even asked for or considered. And it gave me a summer itinerary and a winter itinerary and tell me like which one do you choose and which is better and why is it better.
Right.
So these tools have become so much more contextual and just so much more well-rounded than just
Yeah.
the precise question you're asking. So I
Right.
think
Oh, and
sometimes you
you
don't
learn
even
so
need to
much.
have.
Right.
Yes, yes,
Like
and you
even just
learn
with
so
that
much.
question, like so you learn from that question, like, oh yeah, winter versus summer in Alaska. I bet that's very different. You know,
Yes.
like if I wasn't thinking about that, I am now. And so now you're like you've added a new aspect to your trip planning and consideration that
Yeah.
like you learned something through this, right? And now you're asking a different type of question. You're thinking about it a different way, and yeah, you could approach it like yeah, you wouldn't have even thought to ask before, and that's like it goes one step further, and if yeah, I think all those follow-up questions that they typically put at the bottom too, like, do you want me to tell you about this or this or
Oh, I
this? I'm
love
like,
that.
oh, that's a really interesting thing. Yeah, let's do that one. Yeah,
Uh,
all right,
Perfect. All right, so I'm switching now to corporate.
all right, here we go.
So in our previous conversation, when we first met, right, we talked a lot about everything within a corporation needs to move to SaaS. It needs to move to cloud. Give me why, give me some explanation and your viewpoints on why is that so critical? Why is it so important for us to stay AI competitive, and why is it important for us to move to SaaS?
Well, I mean, the move to let's see. Do you want to take this in the SaaS direction or the AI direction? I mean, I think the one
Um,
thing, yeah, I'll just answer the SaaS question real quick. So a lot of people look at SaaS as just like, well, it must be better because, Amazon or Google runs in the cloud. So the cloud must be more powerful and seems like it's probably cheaper or whatever. And so then they take their data center and their old applications and their old architectures and they just lift and shift it and put it in the cloud. We call that lifting and shifting when you just really don't change the way it works. You just put it in a different location. Well, it turns out that the cloud is really optimized for a rental model, not an ownership model. And if people are renting the same amount of stuff that they used to own, it actually is more expensive. Right. So then they're like, why is the cloud costing us more than the data center? I thought this was going to be a great idea. So what you have to realize is like, then to what you need to do in order to maximize the rental model is rent less most of the time. And when you really need it, rent more. Right. But then you'll find out that the average turns out to be much less than owning because your average is lower than the total amount you used to own. So that's probably my and in order to do that, it requires re-architecting stuff. So so then as far as the AI angle on that, one argument for it could be that like AI thrives on data, right? And data in the cloud is a totally different animal, right? Like you can use products like Snowflake or Databricks, and you can put all your data into that from all your different systems, and also just kind of like link out to other data sources without having to copy them in. You just get permission to them, right? So you can just instantly expand your data sets or even share with a partner or a vendor data sets that it's just a matter of permissioning. It's not copying and making duplicates and all that. So, and then you can run AI on top of that. So there's data solutions in the cloud that aren't available anywhere else, which then gives you AI capabilities that are otherwise impossible if you didn't have that data foundation. So I think that would probably be my quick answer. Um, to go a little bit further, like if you want to use the latest and greatest models, typically those are paid for, hosted in the cloud, and and if you're sending a lot of data back and forth, you want that to be kind of local to your cloud, if you will. Um, but then you're also now uh, this is back to the rental versus owning thing. It's kind of funny that you're in the cloud. So if you're using something like the latest version of ChatGPT and you're have an API out to it, it's charging you by the word, right? And that can get really expensive. But hey, if you've got something that can't be done any other way because it's leading edge, then that's worth it. But if you could make do with the latest version of Llama, which is open source, and you could host it on your own servers, now you're just getting charged by the server, not getting charged by the word. And by the way, you have security all around that server. Now, you know, you've got all these different modes that you could go to the market with. You could say, I don't need the latest and greatest. of ChatGPT. The latest version of Llama would work just fine. I can own the server, I can control the cost, and I can bang on it all day, and the cost doesn't go up, right? So I think there's some really interesting, flexible models that you can use in the cloud that you just wouldn't have in a data center, right? But anyway, I might have gone off on a tangent there. Sorry.
No, no, no. So you've given me some thought on my next question. So yes, moving to cloud, I do see that as definitely there's a ton of benefits, and based on how much data you end up putting, how much governance that's around that data, how much you're using it back and forth, and constant cleanup and all of that, right? Typically, most firms you transfer or move their data to cloud within a specific domain. So if you're looking at the entire belt of customer experience, for example, right, which may require using data from different business functions or different aspects of that entire customer journey. But most companies usually only put a specific aspect of the data, I guess, into cloud. The interaction between the data that's sitting in cloud versus the data that's sitting, say, on a on-prem server, that interaction becomes either too expensive, too slow, too inefficient, or not complete at all for that matter, right? But is there any way that you see, or have the companies or in your experience in the past, how have organizations dealt with that?
Yeah, you bring up a really interesting thing where you're talking about like how do you access the data in your core systems? Like typically we call those systems of record, right? That's like this is where like I'm making my updates. This is where I'm inserting and updating and deleting my like primary copy of the data. Now, and typically what is doing that are people that are like direct users of that data. Like, I'm typing it into a screen or it's coming in through an API. And we need that transactional aspect to be extremely high performance and reliable and all that. So now, and this has always been a challenge for all kind of commercial systems, is that when you put reporting on that, the reporting is now this really heavy database operation that goes in and like reads so much data all at once, and it can possibly slow down the people that are doing the data entry on the other side. So usually a good solution to that in like a very traditional sense would be set up a database replica. So you've got one database for your transactions, and then a near real-time replica. And by near real-time, I mean like it can even be sub-second. It's really close to real-time. And let the real-time replica be the thing that hosts the reporting side of it. And then if for some reason you bog down the reporting server with too many reports, the only thing you're hurting is reports. You're not hurting the people that are putting in the transactions. So using that philosophy, now when you talk about AI, if you can ask AI things that are analysis related, and then AI can turn around and write a query and go against the root like transactional system of record, you run into this huge problem that the AI could write a bad query or whatever and take down your database. And now people that are running transactions are now out of luck, right? So I think you need to be super careful as you provide AI access to your business APIs, right? So like there's a open banking initiative right now that I think it came out last year or the year before that says that all banks have to provide APIs so that a customer at one bank can say, I'm happy to give this other thing, like maybe my budget app that I just signed up for. I want to give the budget app access to my bank, right? And so the budget app, it sounds innocent enough, go out and get my latest transactions. But if the budget app has AI in it and it's going nuts and it's asking for all kinds of information and everyone's using that budget app, all of a sudden that bank who just thought like, oh, I'm just going to have a couple of things hitting this API shouldn't be too bad. Is all of a sudden getting stormed with legitimate requests that they're going to have to now build a whole infrastructure around having to deal with the onslaught of AI coming after all their customer data that was given permission by the customers, right? So these are all the things that you need to worry about. And again, I think that database replicas is the answer, so that you can, kind of shield your core systems of record, from the, like I said, the onslaught of API usage coming from AI, and everyone can still keep everything afloat. But it's going to be something that businesses need to budget for and monitor, right? Of like how much usage is coming in. And maybe it's one budget app that, using budget apps as an example, it could be anything, right? But like let's say it could be one vendor that a bunch of people are using, and that vendor has kind of like a rogue, you know, query builder that just isn't very efficient. And if you looked at your usage coming in by source, you could say like, wow, half of our load is coming from this little budget app. What is going on? Like you're going to have to look into these things and monitor them and figure it out, and then call that company and say, stop doing this. What are you doing? Like, why are you, hitting my server so hard? Can you please fix that? So, or we're going to turn you off. Yeah. So all sorts of interesting problems ahead with hosting your data and allowing AI access to it.
I agree. I think the monitoring of and governance of usage and data itself, I think it's going to be and is a massive investment for companies. And I think this is something that they should be considering very clearly when they're doing their business cases and when they're tracking their ROI for whatever investment that they end up doing. Speaking of data, right? And data, bad data in, bad data out. We've all heard that, right? And I think most of the organizations, whether it's big enterprises, mid-sized enterprises, small, right? They have data everywhere, whether it's on-prem, in an Excel sheet, in a homegrown database that they may have created, some cloud service, and if it's a multi-country corporation, they have data in different countries as well. Um, how like coordinating all of that data with AI? The fact that first it's expensive, data may be inconsistent, data may be just bad data, it may be old data. All of that will, when AI is being brought into the picture, will impact the quality of your output, right? And I think that's one of the things I feel like a ton of organizations are not only dealing with it, but are hesitant because of the cost of what it would mean and the effort. And a lot of companies are not necessarily, not a lot, but there's a decent amount, percentage of companies that have not invested or not dived completely into AI because of the fact that their data is all over the place. It's scattered, it's expensive. So there's a cost aspect to this, there's an inefficiency or the bad data type of aspect to it. Um, what do you see? What do you see as a I don't want to say a full-on solution, but steps towards a solution in adopting AI and still managing their data strategy, still managing all the disparate things that I mentioned in our data.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you said one word that kind of triggered me real quick. You said countries, different countries, and coming from a large fintech, that's always like I said, like a trigger word because GDPR is in Europe, and that you have to be very careful with that, and there's different regulations in different countries. So I would say first off, and I think anyone that's in the professional world understands this, but you have to immediately put fences around the geographies and treat it as a data sovereignty issue from the get-go. So assuming that you are now talking about one country, and if you're going to try to do multi-country, approach that very carefully, right? But within a single country, I think kind of going to the same thing that we talked about before with primary copies and secondary copies and real-time replicas. Maybe it doesn't have to be a real-time replica, but probably putting all your data into one big like data lakehouse under one vendor if you can is super useful. So as you're putting your data architecture together, again, kind of two big leading solutions for this right now are Snowflake and Databricks. Either one of them, as you put the data in, can help you actually analyze what data you even have, which is really interesting. It can analyze a table and it can create the column names and tell you what the columns are all about without you having to tell it, right? So it just looks at all the data in the table and like, this is what this table is. Oh, okay. And these are probably the primary keys and the foreign keys that you could link on. And I can correct those if you need me to, and I'll take a best guess. Like it's crazy how good these tools are now. But what's great about putting them all into one vendor or the other under one kind of roof is that as you do that, the data governance that you put in place with the data permissioning is very, something that you approach very carefully to make sure that, people in marketing can't see the stuff in HR, whatever it might be that's sensitive. And once you've got your data governance and your security models all set, then if you use AI inside of that tool, so again, both vendors let you do this, you can create AI agents, queries, whatever you want to call it, inside of Snowflake or inside of Databricks, and they'll respect the data boundaries that you put in place of this data governance initiative that you did, so that if I ask the AI a question and you asked it a question, we'll get different answers based on the data that we're permissioned for in our data lake, right? That's I think that's really important. So, so I think to me the easiest way to do data governance um, is not to try to figure out how to do like a federated model where you're trying to figure out the security of all these different disparate data systems. I think it's actually much easier and probably more efficient to put it all in one place, so to speak, which is just under one big, huge data lake, enforce all the rules there, and you'll probably have an easier time of it. But it
Well,
could be, I mean, like it depends on the situation. Like if you really are a very data intensive company and kind of data is your business, then you probably have a more robust, mature kind of data fabric solution that, might be kind of next level. And you're already doing some of those things that are actually available in Snowflake and Databricks. And so, I don't know, like there's probably like kind of an 80% solution for everybody. And then like the 20% solution for the pros, if you will.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked for an organization. This was a while ago, and our solution to creating reports on a specific set of data, right, was to build out a data lake, and we had consolidated all of that. It was very, very expensive. Don't get me wrong, but there was a great plan for the ROI, how to achieve revenue from all that consolidated data in one place. The problem that I saw with that one was downstream was the client base was massive. It's okay if you're bringing in client data on a monthly basis, say for 100 clients or even 1,000 clients. But when you start having, you know, petabytes and petabytes of data coming in on a monthly basis from thousands of clients across the board, that can get expensive very quickly, unless there is data governance on the client side as well, that is already been cleaned up and before they send it over to you. And at least this was a few years ago. So, all that we were doing was we were just basically saying that give us all of this data within your, financial bucket, and we're going to take all of it. No cleanliness was done until after the data got into it. So there was I guess a cost to not only from a cleaning up of the data, but the cost of humans being able to bring all of that into our data lake. So there's a bottom line I'm saying is that there is, I think there, to your point, there's no one size fits all. There are lots of solutions that can be customized or tweaked based on how much data are we talking about. And speaking of data, you mentioned something that also made me think about democratization of data, right? So, and you use the word access to data based on their access level, right? Part of the benefit of having AI in on the data that we bring in into an organization or we pull into an organization is the ability for all business functions, business, technology, whatever unit may be able to use use that data, leveraging AI, and be able to make decisions that are much more holistic in nature, right? Like I see, because this is one of the problems I see quite a bit, right? We do sales really well. We do internal technology data really well. Like the business functions by itself are doing really well, but then because they're not talking to each other, there's a lot of money being left on the table, so to speak,
Mm.
right? Both
Yeah,
internally
right.
and externally, right?
Yeah.
So the whole democratization of data is, I think, and will be a lot easier with AI. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think you're right. I want to make one quick other comment on what you were talking about, like petabytes of data and like, wow, how
Right.
do we deal with this? So just real quick, on the on that paradigm I was talking about, like renting versus owning in the cloud. And if you got data in the cloud, you're essentially renting that space, right? Within the rental market, there's also tiers of quality of rental location, right? And so
Mhm.
you got to think about that with your data as well, right? Do I want my data in some cheap, slow storage, or I want my data in some high-priced, fast storage? And if you're not thinking about that tiering of your quality of storage and speed of storage, then you're missing it, right? Because you could be saving a lot of money by like moving the stuff through the tiers very quickly, right? Like in most situations, people are only typically hitting a small percentage of the data, and there's some data they never go look at, right? So you can determine that pretty easily. There's tools to do it, and you should be actively, constantly moving the data from one tier to the other, both up and down, depending on the usage. So that's, yeah, I want to make that quick comment. And so then on the democratization of data and just kind of, how that'll change things. Yeah, I totally agree. I think you'll, like in that example of, let's put all of our data from all different systems into one place and then make sure that everyone is able to see what they're supposed to see. I think you'll find that you can see things that you never thought about that could be, linking things together, like you were saying, across different aspects of the company that you're like, oh, I didn't realize that, right? So, uh, one example being a software vendor that is a tricky thing, not tricky, but it's like, it might not be an obvious thing that you can do is, so if you're a SaaS company and and all the client activity is on your servers, you're watching it happen. Uh, you can see what everyone's account balances are. You can see if they're doing more transactions or less transactions. And even in a B2B situation, like if the salespeople knew that, hey, the number of transactions just dropped a lot last month and is dropping again this month for this client, you might not even know that really because they might have like a fixed price on their software license and they're paying their bills. But what you don't realize is they're actually evaluating a competitor and they're starting to move their business off your system, right? And so if you never track that stuff, like if no one ever puts the transactions per client in there and they don't give sales access to it, you'll never know, right? You'll get surprised, right? Or vice versa. It could even be the totally opposite. Like it could be this client is starting to really use the system in new ways, and they just brought in a whole new book of business onto our system, and no one knows, right? Like, have the account manager reach out to them and say, like, "Hey, we just noticed, like, you brought all this new business on. What's going on? Like, do you need anything else? How can we help you?" Right? So, there's things like that that I feel like a lot of SaaS vendors don't build that into their own internal monitoring in a way that would give their whole team insights that they could follow up on to maximize the relationships. So, anyway,
Yeah. And I love that because part of my experiences in the past has always been seeing these gaps, right? Like you're leaving money on the table to
yeah,
use that word
right,
again, is there are there's a lot that the client is either planning for or considering other vendors, and we don't typically have an idea what that is until it's in your face, right? That, oh,
yeah,
they're not going to take this, or just having a better understanding of what the um, say the tech stack of the or the ecosystem of the architecture that the client may have, right? Not having a deeper understanding of that and being able to sense or being able to evaluate based on the fact that, okay, this is what they are, what their ecosystem looks like, this is what their um, vision, objective, roadmap looks like, and here's what the things that they may require. And let's
mhm,
get ahead of it because we have set products that they've never considered, things that we have in our,
yeah,
um,
right.
backlog that we should be selling. And to your point, sales teams unfortunately are not equipped with that level of depth or understanding or insights.
Right,
Um,
right.
so yeah, I like that a lot. Okay, switching gears, development teams.
All right.
So there is a very real fear, right, of people losing their jobs to AI. And this fear is very, very relevant or very prevalent, I should say, actually, within the developer community, right? There are so many amazing tools out there that are making life easier for a developer, right? To your point, it's like a coworker, right? I'm going to tell Bob to help me write code for XYZ, right? Or I'm going to, I don't know, do my
Right.
documentation or so on and
Yeah.
so forth, right? So I want you to like address two things in here. One is the human aspect of this, right, for the developers out there. And then the second aspect of it is how can developers, no matter which tier they're in, right, meaning that they're just starting out their career or their mid-career or their senior level folks, how do they leverage AI in the day-to-day work that they do?
Yeah. Oh boy, this is a really big topic. So let's just start with, kind of are people going to lose their jobs? Um, I think that you could potentially lose your job if you like refuse to use the AI tools for some reason, right? Like I refuse, I'm not going to do it. Like, all right, well, your buddy over here who's using AI tools is, you know, now, 25% more productive than you, and then oh, now they're 50% more productive. Like, oh, now that person's using 5 agents at the same time. Turns out they're like 200% more productive than you. So at some point, it's gonna be like, well, dude, sorry. You're just like you're you're too expensive as just a human, right? It's good. That sounds terrible, but you're gonna need to, either use the tools or we just can't afford, that. But who knows? Maybe there's situations where that is not the case. But so yeah, I think that that's gonna start happening. But it also um, as like a I don't know like let's say a selfish motivation to use the AI tools is not only will you be able to code faster, but you'll be able to do all the stuff that you don't like doing faster, like writing documentation, writing comments, like writing unit test cases, like all these things that, like when you think of a developer, they're not just like looking at lines of code and typing all day. They're doing all sorts of what they would say is dumb stuff that's like not core to what they have to do or to be creative, but it's like admin work, right? Or even like tracking my time, like, oh, that's the worst, right? So, but if you can just like have all that stuff done by AI as you're working, like, oh, like create, like, all right, that's the perfect code. You've kind of collaborated on it. It's almost like pair programming used to be a big thing a while ago. It probably still is. There are probably still people that use it. But the advantage of pair programming, which was literally two developers sitting at the same screen coding together, was that even though it might feel like that's an efficient, oh my gosh, you're using two people that could do the job of one, but but it turns out that you get better quality out of it because you're like thinking together through the problem as you go, right? Well, if you're now pair programming with AI, it's like, it's going to be amazing. But anyway, so the whole idea is like you could have it do, all these things that are administrative work that you don't want to do. But then the one other thing, like, I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place on this, but uh, think of like the accountability of putting software in production, right? So right now, like if and working in the financial space, this is always a big deal that you can't have one person write the code and put it into production because it's like if you were nefarious and you wanted to create a problem and steal money from accounts or whatever, you have too much power and you can, get away with it because you did the whole pipeline and no one saw it, no one else but saw it. So there's a rule that you have to have at least two people, like one person write the code, another person promote it to production, right? So, and that's not just a rule. I think it's a law or it's regulation, right? It's kind of out of the Sarbanes-Oxley era. So, at any rate, even if AI could do it all, like if AI did it all, who would you hold accountable if there was a problem, right? Like there's this kind of legal problem that, and I don't know, like legal, but there's like this accountability issue that a person, like you want a person's judgment to say like, yes, this is good code. It can go into production. It's all set. Like, and there needs to be at least human eyes on it, right? And it might be like we talked about that the humans aren't even as good as the AI at coding, but they can review it just fine. They can see what it's doing. Uh, Maybe think about it like surgery, right? With robots doing surgery, right? It's going to be eventually where you're going to ask for surgery from a robot, right? Like they go like, this is serious. This is a really serious surgery. I don't want just, some human doing this. Like, I want the robot. Now, do you want the robot just to do it like all by itself, or do you want a human supervising? Like, I want a human supervising. Well, why? Right? Why? Like, why do we think that way? It's like, well, because this is serious. Like, this is not like, if you're going to put a band-aid on me, that's fine. Robot only, no human supervision. You're going to do open heart surgery. Yeah, let's have the human supervise. That sounds like a good idea, right? So kind of the same thing with mission critical software. I think it's going to be very difficult to ever get to the point where we're ready to say like, yeah, AI can just do it all. Like, no humans need to be involved. That sounds a little reckless to me.
Yeah, yeah. I think ownership and accountability definitely is essential part of the entire process. And I think you can maybe have a combination of having some, an AI agent that is built for that, but also I think you do require to hold something accountable if something does go wrong. It has to be a human. This is a slight digression from what we're talking about, but you mentioned doctors, right? There is so India, massive country, right? And there are like pools of urban places where there are tons of doctors, tons of, surgery, and all of that is happening, great hospitals, all of that. But then there is a good part of India which doesn't have access to doctors, access to hospitals, or they
Right.
may have doctors, but the units are very small, so they don't perform all the things that may be required. And recently, in the last year, one of the big hospitals in India has gone in and invested these hubs in different parts of India where they do robotic surgery. So there is, there are doctors who are sitting in these big hospitals, but they are able to reach the more rural
Yeah.
areas and rural patients, and but they are involved. It's not completely robotic, but
Right.
the access becomes a lot easier for them to do this remotely, whether it's a surgery, it could be an eye surgery, it could be I don't know, stitching on your hand, because that's not available, or a doctor is not
Yeah.
within the 50-mile radius of the said place, but there is a hub there. So
Yeah.
I thought that was phenomenal, and that's an innovative use, by the
Yeah,
way,
absolutely.
yeah, in
So then,
technology.
so then to go back to another question you asked about like what I recommend for junior programmers, you could almost, I like this analogy that we're using with surgery because what would you recommend for junior doctors, right? If if you're a junior doctor or let's say you want to be a surgeon, but now robots can literally do surgery better than a human. Like their stitching is more accurate, the cutting's more accurate, like everything about it is like the human just literally is not as good as a robot at doing it. Well, what do you like? Why would anybody go into surgery anymore? Right? Like it is no longer a human skill that needs to be done. But but what if there's not a robot available to do it? Then who even knows what it feels like to put a stitch through an artery or something? Like they don't even like because like that feel and being able to understand like this, I should put this much pressure on it or whatever. Like it requires experience. Well, now no one's going to have the physical experience. Like it just won't be a thing anymore. So then let's take it to the development. This is a tech podcast. Let's keep it technical. But so anyway, on the technology side, yeah, I think it's a huge struggle. Like if you're like a young person who's interested in software, like, well, it'll be really, I think you'll be able to learn software development so much faster because you can learn from a personalized AI tutor who can teach you and watch you as you go and help correct your misconceptions and can answer your questions in the moment. So you'll be able to learn a lot faster. I mean, I think that's going to change school in general, right? Like that's going to be crazy. You can learn from your funny robot, who's also like super empathetic and very helpful, but and infinitely patient. Yeah. But so then, but you only probably need to learn it to a certain extent, right? Like kind of once you got the hang of it, then it's like, all right, well, now that I understand what it looks like, I think I do. Like now I can just start doing asking the robot to do it and watch it do it. But I think the problem with that is like there's senior level engineers I've heard describe this phenomenon where they say, it's correct, but it's not the way I would want it to do it. It's like if I was supervising a junior developer who was doing this, I would say like, well, no, that's not our company's, you know, typical way we do it. We do it a different way for this reason. We use these APIs, not those APIs for this purpose, or we just like this style versus that style, right? We want to keep it consistent. So it's not that you can't correct the AI and have it do that, but if you don't know that, and you're just a junior developer who's like, well, this works, and it does work, but the senior developers that should be reviewing the code are like, well, I guess so, but really, it should be more like this. Right? There's just you're gonna lose that judgment. You're gonna lose that professionalism. It's gonna be hard to hold on to that. And I don't know. Does it even matter with code? Really? I know it's
Exactly.
it's like I hate to say that, but like coding. And I felt this way when I was a developer. It feels like art, right? It feels like you're writing, and you feel like proud of doing something in a novel way that is efficient and clean to read and all that. But, kind of like I was saying before, like I don't like listening to podcasts that are just an AI voice, right? For whatever reason. It kind of feels like you're taking the soul out of development by letting the AI do it. But I don't know. Maybe we're just headed that way. Maybe it's just gonna be like soulless development. And
Oh God.
it
But
sounds
one,
terrible, but like,
yes,
but software in the end really is very pragmatic and it's just getting a thing done, So I don't know.
the other thing that I've seen recently, right? I've been meeting a lot of youngsters, meaning right out of college or maybe 5 years out of college, right? And one of the things that I'm seeing dramatic uptick on is leveraging AI, development technology perspective, right? In building out your own tools. And these kids who are like 26, 27, less than 30 years old, few years ago, they could not have built out their own products,
Right.
without necessarily investing a ton of money. But now these kids are getting out there and leveraging AI to build 1 to 2 people businesses
Sure.
that are building products that are bringing in so much change, profound change, whether it's in education, in healthcare, and whatever, whatever day-to-day problem that a person may be having. I spoke to a friend's son the other day, and this kid is, I think, 25 or 26 years old, had a great consulting gig, was doing really well, all of that. He quit his gig and is now building out a platform that is an education-based platform similar to, Khan Academy, but also takes into account the YouTube, this thing. So it's not just academic, it's learning everything, right? Whether you
Mhm.
want to learn how to cook something or whether
Yeah,
you want to
right.
code something, it's that platform that everybody can access. But with AI, right now there's so much in YouTube, but it's very hard to find stuff in YouTube,
Sure.
right? So his platform will help you with AI,
Oh,
help you
wow.
kind of narrow down that what you cannot find based on your persona and what you're looking for.
Oh,
So
that's
I
crazy.
just thought,
You could
yeah,
do, I didn't like, I mean, you could do like an interactive cooking lesson where you're watching a video, like, and you could put it on a big screen and watch the person do it,
yeah,
but it's actually being generated on the fly.
yes.
It's like someone like, oh, you want to make a chocolate cake? Great, we're going to make a chocolate cake. And you're like, no, how about chocolate coconut? Oh, okay. Well, all right, now we're going to do chocolate coconut. But like and the whole kitchen scene could be fake, and the person's fake, and all the
Or that I don't have
like,
this ingredient
like,
in my thing. Can you, make it, make
right,
it, make it with something that
right,
that
yeah,
replaces it. So
right.
yeah, the
Oh yeah, and the cook is
possibilities
like,
are,
"Oh sure, all right. Well, let's throw that away and let's get this other one." Like as if you're talking to someone who is like just on like a video conference of like your
yes,
personal chef who's teaching you how to do something. Oh wow, that's a really
yeah,
bizarre like, and it could be using all these YouTube videos as reference, like a point of reference to create it on the fly. Like this is
yeah,
typically how a cook acts. This is how they look when they're stirring. Like, oh wow, yeah, it's crazy
I
to
think,
think of the stuff that is coming.
yeah.
Like it's just outrageous. Yeah.
I think what I see, Scott, quite a bit is that, we are educated, with this I guess this guardrails of, taking these number of classes. This is the kind of persona that comes out taking these standardized types of classes, exams, so on and so forth, right? What this has done is, or is doing, I should say, is if you are the kind of person who wants to draw outside the box, so to speak, and are creative, it unleashes that for you. So I think the
Yeah,
bottom line is,
sure.
I think as long as you are able to stretch outside of your current persona, I think you can definitely take advantage of the potential of this technology, so to
Oh,
speak,
yeah,
in any
right.
arena that you want. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, all right. Love this conversation, by the way. So,
It's fun.
future-proofing, yeah, future-proofing AI solutions. Now, there is, paid models of, AI solutions out there, and there's open source models, right? As a CTO, right, how do you make sure that the organizations can help invest in AI solutions that can take into account the amount of changes that are coming in, right? Like how do you set up your strategy in a manner
Yeah.
that you're not making too many investments that may end up changing a year down the road,
Sure.
or
Yeah.
creating
Oh,
a
it's a great
mess?
question. And this came up with I'll take it down the direction of like this came up when we did the transition to cloud, right? So as cloud became really popular, at first the clouds were somewhat different from each other in terms of what services they offered. Like AWS might offer a certain thing like tiered storage, and Azure only has one level of storage. And so you're like, oh, we gotta. And this is just I just made that up. Who knows? Azure could have been first, but the idea being that there are certain services or APIs or whatever available on one cloud versus the other, and they were different enough that at first it was like, well, I guess I'll go with this one for this reason. And now you've got AWS, Azure, and GCP that are all basically the same, right? And so what everyone says when if you're a software vendor creating something, you say, we are cloud agnostic, right? Like that's
Mhm.
the word everyone uses because you want to be able to sell to everybody and they could be on any one of those three platforms, right? So, um, so then I think that you need to take that same attitude as you talk about AI models, especially like you said, everything's changing so fast. What the future looks like is so unknown. So you need to really be AI agnostic, right? And so you need to figure out, how do I write my code in a way that, kind of puts a layer between like my core business logic and then when I call out to AI and get the answer back, right? Like I don't want to put uh, I don't know, I'd like to get super technical here, but like the way that you could also look at something that needs to be database agnostic, right? Like this, all these things come up in your coding. And so you typically create your own internal API that's something like Ask the Agent API, right? It's totally just a fake facade. And all of your main code asks that thing, like as if it is the real AI. Hey, what's the capital of, whatever, uh, Georgia, right? So, but you're not making a direct call to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. You're just making a call to your own internal layer, and then that layer in turn, kind of you create then like plugins, if you will, for all the different vendors you want to support, and you can pick which one you want to use at the time, and then you call the actual API for that particular vendor, right? So you just need to kind of have your code in layers like that. And I think that's really ultimately what people are going to be doing. And if you don't do that now, you'll do it later because at some point you'll be like, oh wow, okay, this is not working for whatever reason. It's too expensive, or the one that we picked doesn't have the right feature. So now for this part of our code, we need to start using a different one. And if you're going to pull out the ones that you hard coded before, you're not going to put in new ones that are hard coded. Now you're going to think like, oh, this is going to happen again, I bet. So let's put a layer in there to abstract it. So anyway, that's how I would go about it.
And speaking of, in same vein of thought, speaking of, future proofing, right? One of the things that we had talked about was to accelerate AI adoption in an organization, right? Hiring consultants, hiring, SMEs is a better approach. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
why do you think that, and not
Yeah.
the current model, not?
Well, no, I mean, I think you can learn on your own. I mean, for the most part, everyone is learning on their own since it's so new and we're all doing it at the same time, right? Like, you can't find someone who has, what, like I feel like this is another, all right, so here's another thing that bothers me. Is what it's people who are like, AI has been around for a decade, it's been around forever. It's like, yeah, sure, I agree. It's been around since the 1950s if you want to stretch it, right? Whatever. But but like that moment when the first ChatGPT had the public release, I think it was, am I getting this right? Like November of 22, I think it was around
Yes,
there. Yeah.
November
I mean, there
22.
we go.
Yeah.
Uh, like that was an absolutely defining moment, like totally different. It's way different, right? Like you could say, well, personal devices have been around forever. I had a Palm Pilot, which I did. But, but when, but when the iPhone came out, like the world was never the
Changed
same
thing.
again, right? Yeah, like,
Yes.
sure, you could say there's personal devices, but really it's a game changer. So same thing with, okay, so no one has been around, no one has been doing this. Well, that was my whole point. Sorry, no one's been doing this for more than 2.5 years at this point.
Yeah.
Like literally, like um, even at my last job, we were doing stuff with AI and ML back in 21, 20, and it didn't work that well. Like it was really good. It was like 80% accurate doing this one thing that we were trying to do, but 80% our customers were like, like that means I have to check it all the time. I have to go back and look at it, and it's not really that great. If you're not in the high 90s percent, then I'm not going to pay extra for that, right? Anyway, so everyone only has 2.5 years experience. Well, the other thing is that since it is so drastically different way of working, like we talked about before, like you actually have to change how you think about solving problems. You actually have to figure out how am I going to put this into my day, right? Like the example of a developer using AI to do the documentation or the comments or the coding, like all these things are like, well, I used to do it a certain way, now I got to do it a different way. That's not you watch a 1 hour video and now you're set, right? This is like, huh, like, okay, well, I guess I'll try this part of it. I get that kind of mastered, and then I'll go a little bit further and try some other stuff. But if you're literally just trying it on your own, I mean, it'd be like, I don't know, trying to learn piano on your own or something, right? Like, sure, you can do it, but oh my gosh, it's so much better if you've got someone right next to you going, oh, no, no, do it like this. Yep, that was good. That wasn't so good. Here, let me show you. I think the same thing with learning how to use AI as a developer. I mean, the fastest way to learn it would be hire consultants to come in to help you, like either do a project that is also AI, like might as well get two birds with one stone. So if there's some new project that your company is trying to do that's AI related, like we're going to build an AI feature into something, well, hire some consultants who can actually do it for you, but don't have them do it for you, have them do it with you, right? And and not only show you like this is how you put this AI component into this piece of software so that now that software has AI, but how do I get AI into me? Like how do I like work with AI as a developer? Like sit down next to me and show me how this works. Like, and maybe it's not literally sitting
You're
down next to
making
you.
me think of agile coaches.
Right.
That's what you're
No,
making me
seriously, right.
think,
This
yeah?
this is
Yeah.
this is like, oh, that's a great example because I've seen the exact same thing with Scrum where you try to teach an organization how to use Scrum and it never fails. I've seen this so many times where everyone's like, "Well, we got certified," which is it's funny because in Scrum, getting certified is like literally a 2 day course, maybe 3 days if you stretch it out, right? It's like
Yes.
you've seen it all, but like and then you go back and you're like, "Huh, I don't remember. Why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense." You hire a coach, and the coach makes all the difference, right? So
Yes.
same thing. Yes, I totally agree. So I think if you want to, accelerate your transition to really using AI effectively, or for that matter, using Scrum or Kanban or whatever effectively, hire a coach. And you
Yeah.
like, I've seen people who are like, oh yeah, we do Agile, and then you hire the Scrum coach, and they're like, oh wow, we're terrible. Like
Yes.
I'm not even thinking about this the right way. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you would
Yeah.
learn so much from bringing in a coach and or bringing in a
Yeah.
consulting company and actually add it to the statement of work. Say that not only are we going to create this work deliverable, but I also want my people to learn this. So that's part of the expectation. Like that's what I want to hire you for.
I think I'll add one more thing to this one, and from the adoption perspective, right? I think a lot of firms that are investing in AI and AI coaches and SMEs in their thing, I think should also think about investing in building out a COE, because this is a journey.
Yes.
This is going to evolve as time goes by, right? And having a COE that kind of incorporates the various business functions and how things need to be standardized, right? Whether it is, how you use AI within the HR functions versus a finance function, what types of tools that you should be using. Um, I don't know. It's almost like a talent multiplier, right?
Yes.
A COE,
Right.
and I think the evolution of AI within and permeation within the entire organization with a COE becomes much more structured
Hmm.
and also long lasting. It becomes
Yeah.
much more grounded in the organizations. That's on another thing that I think would be good for organizations there. They're thinking about
Oh yeah, I think that's a great
AI
idea.
adoption across the
Yeah.
org.
And,
Yeah.
and what's interesting about the AI COE that you could create for a company is that I don't know that I would necessarily put it in the technology organization, which sounds funny, right? But like it's like if you only think of AI in the context that we've been talking about, like developing software, right? Like you completely missed it because finance is going to have all sorts of new ways to use AI that doesn't involve coding, right? It doesn't involve producing software. It means like they could do better forecasting, right? So, uh, and of course, everything, every discipline or function inside of a company can benefit from that. So it might be actually best to have, maybe something that's kind of like under the umbrella maybe of your COO, like just like it's just
Mhm.
operations, right? And
Yeah.
and maybe it's a cross-functional like what would you call that? Like a forum, not a forum, like a almost like a steering committee, but that sounds too uh,
I
like
think you could have a
administrative.
COP, right? Community of practices,
Right,
right? Where
there you
you
go.
have different representation from the various different parts of the organization
Yeah,
be part of that
yeah,
community, so to speak. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But I could see in the trying to use AI inside your company, something like, the representative from HR in this group says like, hey, this is what HR is doing, and everyone's like, wow, I want to do that in finance. I want to do that in sales. Like it's going to be so applicable to any function. So you'd be completely missing it if you didn't tell each other what you're up to, right? And even
Exactly.
learning from the things that didn't work, right? Like
Yeah.
I've been trying to do this in AI forever. I tried it this way, that way, never worked. But finally, I kind of guess I got something that kind of works like this, and that would maybe even help people avoid like, oh, good, so I'm not going to try to do all those things that failed. I'll just, we'll figure it out together and we'll get somewhere eventually. But yeah, this learning process is real. I don't think that you can change the way that you work and like be a different worker in a day, right? Like
Yeah.
it's that we're talking about months, right? So I would, you know, and I would, something like this, it might even take like 3 to 6 months of practice and learning, failure, failing
Agree.
again. And then
Yes. Yes.
finally, like, oh, now it's clicking, or man, we were using this one tool that was so expensive, and now someone else somewhere found that you could use the other tool and it's free or almost. So I think there's going to be a lot of experimenting with the tools, experimenting with the approach, and seeing the cost of it go up and down. And, there's just a lot of variability that you need to work through here, and it takes time.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. There's a role that seems to be cropping up quite a bit now, is a chief innovation officer, right? And it is to that effect where there's a lot coming in from a technology world, right? And how do you test out these technologies in a controlled manner to see if does it work without necessarily investing a ton there. So there's and that could potentially be impacting the entire organization. So there's I think there's so many facets of how you can bring AI adoption across the board. Whether COE, not agile, but AI coach, innovation. I guess entire organization could be dedicated to innovation. Doesn't have to be a big one, but it could be a unit which has funding that can be leveraged to create new things or
Yeah.
innovate new things.
Yeah, I think that the thing that we'll probably see happen though is similar to like I don't know, I think it was in the late 90s, everyone was creating a new role for the VP of e-commerce, right? And because
Oh, I
it
remember
was
that.
like, well, you know, like we're going to sell stuff online, which is a completely different thing, right? So like the person who runs our stores can't run the website. That's terrible. Like, yeah, we need to have a VP of e-commerce for that, right? I mean, there's still definitely, you know, this idea that we have today about different channels for different, ways of selling. But and there's probably still people that have a VP of e-commerce title. I apologize if you do, but it feels like it's more just like, well, that's just of course it's just a channel. It's just a way that you sell stuff. Like it's all related to the same supply chain in the end, and it just kind of all melds together, right? So I think we'll see the same thing with some of these AI officer or innovation officer type of roles. Again,
Yeah.
no offense to anyone who has those titles, but I think that they're probably needed at first, honestly, just to kind of get the attention and the investment and to really show that the company's headed in a new direction. But it might just kind of become the way we work,
Yeah.
eventually, and then that
That-
role just sort of gets absorbed into everybody's roles, and so then you kind of just go back to your typical functional heads like we've always had, and all of them are doing AI, and that's just what we do.
And I see that more likely to happen than not, to your point.
All right.
All right. Key thoughts, right? This was amazing, by the way. There are so many facets that we have covered today from the technology world, and there's tons of takeaways that whether you are a CTO, going to be a CTO, whether you're a developer, whether you're an entrepreneur, or whatever function you're in, that you can take away from today's conversation. I think the last thought would be give me something that every tech leader listening today would definitely need to do, not only just to survive the AI era, but actually to thrive in it. Um, what advice would you be giving them?
Well, I think honestly, like everyone has to turn into a learner immediately, and you need to really double down on that. Like I know we keep on talking about how this is a drastic change, and the world's going to change forever, but it really is. Like it's like
Yes.
not kidding, right? Uh, so, and it's uh, I don't know. Like I try to spend every free moment I can of, you know, what's going on in the world. It's crazy. Like there's, I think it's Brad Adcock is that his name. He's one of the CEOs of one of the companies out there. I can't remember which one at the moment, but he writes this thing on X. It's like what happened this week in AI, and it's like the top 10 things that happen in AI, and it's crazy. Like weekly, there's stuff that's being released that you're like, that's insane, right? Like just like and so it's not. I mean, the compression of the release cycles on this and the advancements is just like you can't wait and you have to keep on hearing what's going on, like find, you know like, and honestly for me at this point now it's like if I go to YouTube and I just bring up my YouTube feed, it this is all stuff I listen to, so it's always right at the top. There's always something interesting, right?
Yeah.
And it's like like play it when you're in the car or when you're working out, like just kind of keep up with it to understand what's even possible, and then be sure that you're at work, that you're actually using it and that you're letting people loose with it, right? Like you can't just, I don't know, like you can't ignore this. People are going to have to be experimenting with it, and it's such early days, right? Like if you I don't know. Because I just feel like you're gonna wish that you did if you didn't, right? Like
Yeah.
you're gonna say like, oh, what was I thinking? Like it was right there next to me, and I just felt like, no, I still need to do things the old way, and I don't have time for this. Like, no, 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 you gotta find time for this.
Yes. There is, if you look in the last 150, 200 years of history of the Earth, right? Every 30 years, there is a new era, so to speak, that has changed the way we do things, right? From very basic stuff, as in flying, airplanes. It's changed the entire geography of how we move people around.
Yeah.
Phones, television, internet, right? And AI now. And I think the folks, and then there's lessons to be learned from the history, right? That folks, I think, who have adapted and adopted through learning and curiosity, I think are the ones who are getting ahead, or have gotten ahead, or have taken, um, or have benefited from it, right?
Mhm.
But I think the slight difference with AI now is because AI now sits on top of all of these other inventions that have already happened, and it's the compound effect of the
Yeah.
changes that are coming in.
Oh yeah.
So to your point, I think learning is something that, and curiosity is something that I think folks everywhere, whether you're a student, whether you're even if you're not working at all, right? Like if you are somebody who is owning a restaurant, but doesn't necessarily, do a tech job, get into it, get into
Yeah.
AI and see how it can benefit whatever it is that you're doing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even stuff that you think is, I don't know, like irrelevant or impossible. Like I've got aging parents. My wife and I are at that age where that's now becoming a thing. And like one huge market opportunity I see that's going to be a massive opportunity. Everyone talks about like how are we going to take care of the baby boomers? Like there's more people at that generation than any other. Well, I think robots actually might be the answer to that. Where it's like you're going to be able to stay in your home and have a robot assistant for a fraction of the prices it would cost to go to assisted living, right? And and that's going to be because of technology, right?
Yeah.
And so even if you're sitting here listening to this and you're like, I don't know, in your mid 70s and you're like, this doesn't apply to me. It's like, I don't know, maybe you can be one of the pilot users of the new at-home robot care, right? And that would be fun to be like,
Yeah.
you know, then the grandkids are going to want to come to your house because you got the
Yeah.
robot.
Yes.
I
So
don't know.
anyone listening out there who wants an idea, this is
There you
what
go,
you
right
guys need
there.
to be doing.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
Scott, thank you so much for your time and your insights today. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, thanks. That was great. Yep. I always appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.